Welcome back to part 2 of my research presentation. We are starting off with validity and reliability, specifically with inter-observer agreement. 33% of all assessments will be recorded, and all intervention sessions will be recorded. 2 independent observers, special education teachers who are not involved in the study, will analyze and score all recorded assessment sessions and 33% of the fourth and final readings from the intervention sessions and compare their scoring to that of the instructor for the session. This will be done in order to ensure that the instructor is consistently and accurately scoring the sessions. For fidelity of treatment, instructors will be provided with a checklist that they will follow and check off while conducting intervention sessions and assessments. Additionally, all intervention sessions will be recorded and 33% of assessments will be recorded. The independent observers will listen to 33% of all intervention sessions and all recorded assessment sessions to ensure that all steps are being followed. For social validity, once the intervention is completed and the participants have completed both post-intervention baseline data points, they will be asked how they felt about the intervention. Specifically, they will be asked if they feel the intervention was beneficial and how they feel about their reading skills now that it is over. Parents will also receive an email asking if they notice any difference in their child's reading skill or confidence in their reading abilities. Now we are moving over to slide 15, which is proposed data analysis plan. 2 sets of data will be analyzed for each group, intervention data and assessment data, and both will be graphed with baseline data included. So each data set will be analyzed using a visual analysis by turning the data points measured in words correct per minute into a line graph for each group set of data. When analyzing the visual data, the following will be compared between the groups for both data sets. Per level, we will see if the words correct per minute increased, and if so, by how much. And we're also going to target which group's level increased the most. For the trend, which group showed the steepest or greatest increase in words correct per minute? Which one had the most growth overall? For variability, were there any significant changes in words correct per minute between intervention or assessment sessions? And then what could have caused that if there were drastic changes, either going up or down? Immediacy of change. Once the interventions were introduced, how quickly did words correct per minute improve? How did the rate of growth compare between the intervention and assessment data, as well as between the groups? For data overlap, was there a major difference between either baseline data and the intervention data? And what about between the baseline or assessment data? Lastly, consistency. Is the rate of growth consistent for each group? If not, what would cause the changes in growth or words correct per minute that were lower than the previous session? Moving ahead to slides 16 through 17, in which I will discuss the quality indicators. For our description of participants, the criteria for participants is specific enough that it could easily be replicated in another study. For the independent variable or interventions, the interventions are described in detail and the steps needed to undertake the intervention are fully listed, meaning that these interventions could be replicated by future studies or just in the classroom. Additionally, the assessments that are a part of the study are also specifically designed and could be recreated by a future study or again in the classroom. Now, before we move over to dependent variable, we do have one more bullet. Validity and reliability are also ensured due to recordings and analysis of the intervention and assessment data by independent observers. Now moving over to the dependent variable. The dependent variable, which is reading fluency as measured by words correct per minute, is described in the study, and it is specifically explained how the dependent variable will be measured at the end of the intervention sessions, assessments, and baseline data. Which brings us to baseline, which says the process of collecting baseline data and the amount of baseline data is specifically described and easily recreatable for future studies. Next up, experimental control and internal validity. The experiment is conducted using a checklist to ensure that instructors follow the correct steps each time, and all intervention sessions and 33% of assessment sessions are recorded. These sessions are then analyzed by independent observers to ensure validity. Additionally, multiple data points are collected during the intervention, both on unfamiliar texts, those were the assessment sessions, and familiar texts, which means students have been exposed to it, and those would be the repeated reading sessions, as well as before and after the intervention period to monitor the effectiveness of the interventions. For external validity, due to its specific criteria for participation and detailed steps for the intervention, this study has external validity because it is easy to select similar students who would benefit from this intervention and recreate the interventions due to the detailed steps. Next up, we have social validity, which states that the outcomes of the study are important. Increased reading fluency for students with specific learning disabilities would make it easier for them to succeed in school. And this intervention is easy to implement and requires few materials, making it easily accessible, such as due to the nature of the fact that it is relatively easy to implement, that would help with social validity. Next up, we are looking at my mini project reflection. So what did I learn in this project? First and foremost, I learned how to create a group ABA design, research study, and proposal. It's one thing to just read through all the steps, but just to read through a bunch of literature review or studies for my literature review. But it's another to really look at all the steps that are necessary to create the study. I had never realized how much thought went into these things, as including things such as the inclusion criteria or how data will be measured until I created this proposal. It was really eye-opening, to say the least, just how much is put into these studies. I also really learned about the quality indicators for group research design. Specifically, like learning what makes a quality group research study has got me going back over some of those studies I read for my literature review and wondering if they were quality. It's really interesting to see how and think about how could these studies be replicated in my classroom or replicated in another part of the world. Just think to yourself, oh, is it really quality if that's not possible? And lastly, how much thought goes into creating a research study? If I'm being honest, I had never thought about how much effort goes into creating a study like this. I knew it was, a difficult process, but I didn't realize just quite the level of the steps, everything you had to think about. It's truly mind-boggling, to say the least. It is much more complex and thoughtful than I had ever imagined. There are just so many different parts of the research study that I had never considered, and I'm very glad I got to be exposed to them. Ultimately, I did find this project to be very beneficial to my understanding of research studies. Taking the time to really look through all the different facets and create one of my own really helped me to understand them better. I really enjoyed taking what I had learned from reading all the studies from my literature review and being able to use them in this practical application. And if I ever find myself in a job or course that requires research studies, I will be glad I have had this project as practice. So thank you for assigning it for me. It was quite a bit of work, but I am glad at the end of the day that I got to do this. And here are my references for all the studies that I mentioned throughout. These are available on the PowerPoint as well. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. And yeah, have a great day.